Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we scream, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling." Or it might be rain. Either our entire civilization is about to fall in on itself, or we're gonna get a sprinkle. One or the other could be true. Anyways, I came across this article from CNN, and I thought it was interesting. And then I read the actual blog post that this article was based off of, and it was a lot less interesting, a lot more prosaic. Can you believe some content creation businesses out there use clickbait in their titles in order to get more traffic? That's ridiculous. Horrible people, I say. Anyways, CNN says Amazon says it will reduce its workforce as AI replaces human employees, right? And that's the big storyline. That's the big narrative that's been going on lately. AI is going to replace your job. And I don't know, maybe it will. Maybe it won't, but that's kind of the world of technology. And I find it very interesting because there's this massive emphasis on the idea that AI is going to take everybody's jobs. But nobody's focused on if-else statements. Nobody's focused on database systems. Nobody's focused on any of these other things out there. But AI, that is the boogeyman. Interest rates being at a reasonable level. Don't look at that. That has nothing to do with your career. But AI will be the destruction. One of the things I do want to emphasize here, if I can take the snark out for a little bit, if I can drop the character just a little bit, leave some of the snark out, is I do have to say, when I talk with young technology professionals nowadays, they are some of the most depressed motherfuckers I have seen in 30 years of being in this industry. Now, I've been in this industry for a long time. I've seen the type A personalities. I've seen the a-holes. I've seen the people depressed because they found out their boss was a type A personality a-hole. You know, the type of employee that worked really hard that year in order to make the company a lot more money, and then they don't even get a cost of living increase in their salary, right? I've seen that kind of depressed, but lately there's just been such more of this existential dread and depression out of tech employees. And what I just want to say from the bottom of my heart is stop. The technology world changes. Our tools change. The stacks constantly change. You roll with it, you will continue to have a career in this industry. You don't roll with it, you go off and do something else. That's all it is. AI, do not get me wrong. Large language models, multimodal models, all these models and things are cool. They're amazing. They're wonderful sometimes. But they're not actually artificial intelligence. And two, they're pieces of functionality you can now use to build bigger and better systems. They are force multipliers, so on and so forth. So just, if you want to be a technology professional, you can have a long career ahead of you as a technology professional. Will it look like my career? Will it look like Lewis's career? Will it look like Tech Lead's career? Probably not. It will look like something else. That's the way it's gone. When I was a kid, my father was a PhD safety engineer for the government. When I was a kid, he used to bring portable computers home. They were literally suitcases. They were suitcases where you put it on the table, and then the one side you would hit these buttons, and the keyboard would come down. You literally had a CRT screen like this big in the computer with the whole thing, and that was a portable computer for his generation. Things change. Move with the times or find another career. But anyways, the sky is not falling. It might be a pretty bad rainstorm. I'm not saying it's not going to be a thunderstorm. I'm not saying that. but the sky is not falling. So anyways, what CNN's clickbait article is based off of is this post from Andy Jassy of Amazon, a message from CEO Andy Jassy, some thoughts on generative AI. And he provides some thoughts with generative AI, and I want to talk about this a little bit because I do think it's interesting, especially in this modern world of agentic AI. And so you have LLMs. You currently have LLMs, multimodal models, reasoning models, all those kinds of things, and that's their deal. What agentic AI does is it basically essentially creates bots that allow you to use AI in order to take actions, right? So let's say you need to get a haircut, right? Let's say your hair has gotten a little long, you need to get a haircut. So you could just say to your computer, hey computer, I need to get a haircut, preferably try to do it Thursday or Friday afternoon. Right? And then what the computer could do is it could go to your barbershop and it could pull out the current schedule and bookings for your barbershop and see what openings are available. It can then see what openings are available in your calendar. It then can then also see possible preferences or whatever else. You may have a preference for a barber or something like that. It's using AI, basically natural language processing. When you talk to the computer, it's able to understand what you're asking for. And so basically it pulls all of this information together and then it can simply create an appointment. Hey, boss, I created an appointment at 2 o'clock on Thursday for you, blah, blah, blah. Does that sound okay? Yes. That's basically what we're talking about with agentic AI. You can think about this maybe in the cybersecurity realm. Be careful, be careful. Hallucinations and firewall rules don't mix very well. But think about this, right? If you had log files that were coming in, so you had log files from numerous systems, routers, firewalls, your server systems, all that kind of stuff, that's all coming in. Some type of AI system that is trying to analyze that information, and it sees something that it recognizes as quirky, right? Maybe there is a weird kind of pinging going on in the network where one computer pings different things only a single time at kind of random intervals. And maybe the AI sees that, or something much more complicated within the packets, right? An agentic AI might have the ability to go into your firewall rules and simply close the ICMP port for possibly that particular computer or something else, right? That's agentic AI. The ability for the artificial intelligence to determine the environment and the situation and then be able to take an action based off it, which is very powerful. But one of the things you need to be thinking about is somebody needs to build all these agents, right? These agents don't just come about. That's one of my frustrations when we talk about AI. There's this thing with AI. When we talk about AI, there's this idea that it's just born. It's just born a fully walking robot system, right? That somehow, oh, we created AI, all computer people's work is done. And you're like, no. You still have to take that functionality. You still have to find problems. You then have to figure out how to add that functionality, other functionality to create a system that then actually solves problems for people. Because that's what we do as technology professionals. Wait for it. Don't yell at me. We solve problems with technology. Anyways, whether it's a NoSQL database or whether it's an LLM, at the end of the day, all we do is solve problems with technology. But I know in the modern world, that's controversial. Eli, I want to be a technology professional. I don't understand why you keep bringing up this whole solving problem thing. Anywho, quote from Andy Jassy. Today, in virtually every corner of the company, we're using generative AI to make customers' lives better and easier. What started as deep conviction that every customer experience would be reinvented using AI, and that altogether new experiences we've only dreamed of would become possible is rapidly becoming reality. Technologies like generative AI are rare, and they come about once in a lifetime and completely change what's possible for customers and businesses. So we are investing quite expansively, and the progress we are making is evident. And when you think about this, we are investing quite expansively, right? something to think about with this disruption is, yes, are a lot of people going to get fired? Hell yes. Do you want to be one of the people who get fired? No. But in order to fire people, investment has to go into some other area, right? When I was selling auto attendant systems for telephone systems, basically, if you want service, press 1, that type of deal, right? Those systems fired a crap ton of receptionists. Nobody cares about receptionists. Nobody ever shed a tear over the receptionists that got fired. I just point that out. But anyways, just tens of thousands of receptionists in the corporate world literally got eliminated because, you know, this $1,000 product forever eliminated their $30,000 a year job. The important thing to understand is most people focus on the people that are getting fired, but there are some people over on the other side that were deploying those technologies that were making a tidy profit off of selling those auto attendant systems. Hey, we'll come in and we'll put in a brand new telephone system for you with these fancy auto attendant things, blase, 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 and I'll make $2,000 a day or whatever for doing it. So that is one of the things to be considering here. I just noticed that there's just so much depression. I think the depression comes from so many of these new technology professionals is they don't fundamentally grasp the concept of what their job is. Their job is to solve problems with technology. So if what you've been doing for a while no longer becomes valuable, then you simply go back, figure out what the new technologies or whatever that are valuable are to solve problems, and you simply re-skill yourself within our industry. I see so many people, they have just been stuck on the JavaScript stack for 15 years, right? They have been milking the JavaScript stack dry, and they think that is technology. Like that. And now AI comes along and it can create a better, front end and React than you can. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, technology jobs are gone. No, your job is gone. Your job is gone. The person creating the agents, they're making a metric crap ton of money. You hear that from Meta. OpenAI is currently complaining. Apparently, Meta right now is giving $100 million in bonuses simply to poach OpenAI employees. I'll just put that out there. So maybe you want to reskill. Anyways, you can see it in what we're rolling out in Alexa Plus, our next generation Alexa personal assistant that's meaningfully smarter, more capable, and is the first personal assistant that can take significant actions for customers on top of providing intelligent answers to virtually any question. And that is going to be the interesting thing with this modern world of technology, the idea of being able to take actions for you. So you had Web 1.0. So Web 1.0 is essentially HTML and CSS and JavaScript. You had just static, whatever websites. Then you had Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is when social media and that stuff started coming in. So you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have that type of thing. Then you have Web 3.0, which is not Web 3, there is something called Web 3. Web 3 is dumb. Web 3.0 is real. It's called a semantic web, basically using APIs and that type of thing. The idea of being able to pull information in from different services in order to create like a better web experience. That's a semantic web. I would argue we're now going into Web 4.0. And so Web 4.0 is where you're going to be able to have these agents basically be able to take actions for you on the internet, right? There was a tremendous amount of money to be made in Web 1.0, HTML and CSS. There was a tremendous amount of money to be made in Web 2.0 with social media and that type of thing. There's been a tremendous amount of money with Web 3.0, and I would argue there's just going to be a metric crap ton of money with Web 4.0 if, you're willing to go hit the books and actually try to build something. But anyways, you can see it with our AI shopping assistant that's been used by tens of millions of customers around the world to discover new products and make our informed purchases decisions. And you can see it in what we're delivering in AWS for builders, whether it's custom silicon, Trainium 2. So that is an interesting thing with the whole thing. We talk about NVIDIA and how valuable NVIDIA is. So when we talk about AI right now, especially in some media establishments, we talk about AI. Basically, we talk about NVIDIA, and we talk about China, and we bring up AMD every once in a while, and we laugh at Intel. Right? That's basically like you think about AI in the Eli the computer guy world. That's basically what we've been talking about lately. One of the interesting things that I haven't gotten to a lot is a lot of the silicon actually being produced directly for Google, AWS, and for Microsoft with Azure. That they are actually building their own silicon specifically in order to get better efficiency out of their AI processes. And so that's going to be an interesting thing going into the future too, and just something to be thinking about again from architectural style. Trainium 2 to provide better price performance on models training and inference services that make it much easier to build foundation models or leverage leading frontier models and do Gen AI inference at scale. Our own frontier model to give customers leading intelligence at lower latency and cost, or services to make it much easier for developers to write code. We're also using generative AI broadly across our internal operations and our fulfillment network. We're using AI to improve inventory placement, demand forecasting, and the efficiency of our robots, all of which have improved cost to serve and delivery speed. We've rebuilt our customer service chatbot with Gen AI, providing an even better experience than we'd had before, and we're assembling more intelligent and compelling product detail pages from leveraging Gen AI. I could go on, but you get the idea. While we've made a lot of progress, we're still at the relative beginning. That's the other thing to be thinking about with this whole AI revolution. A lot of people that are crying right now, they feel like we're at the end. We're not at the end. Even if AI takes everybody's jobs in 10 years, you still have 10 years to make a lot of money until all the jobs are gone. There are a few reasons we believe this and want to go even faster. First, we have strong conviction that AI agents will change how we all work and live. Again, the agents are AI that basically is able to interact with things. There will be billions of these agents across every company and in every imaginable field. And think about that. Back in the day, I would install network infrastructure, I'd install servers, those types of things. Now we got, for the past number of years, we've gotten into custom applications and that type of deal. Think about this. Amazon is coming out and talking about there being billions of these agents. Think about small and medium-sized businesses and how you could create agents in order to solve their very, very specific problems and try to figure out what the value proposition is there. What if the CEO could simply tell the AI to do something? There are some people out there that like to complain about employees because employees have a nasty habit of doing exactly what you tell them to do. Malicious compliance. Until you've dealt with malicious compliance, you just have not had a fun day. Anywho, imagine if you could go to these CEOs and you could start talking about how you could outsource employees, not to India, not to Ukraine, not to something else. What if you could actually take that tasking and hand it over to AI? One of the curious things now, and I think it comes from the youth that are in the technology world, right? From a young person's perspective, there's this idea of always building things new. People talk about creating the next unicorn, and not having any employees. It's all being driven by AI, there's a question mark there. If you don't have to have any employees, what is your actual moat? A whole bunch of things. One of the things to consider, though, is what about companies that have existed for 50 years, right? Is it easier to create a billion-dollar company with no employees or go to a billion-dollar company and start eliminating employees? I talked about this before where I had a really crappy app. Years and years ago, I used Access to create a crappy app for one of my customers. Basically, it was a scheduling system. So they wanted to auto schedule people for classes, and so you could press a button and it would auto schedule. I felt bad. It was ugly. It was janky. I had worked on it, whatever. So I go to a customer. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I'm like, here it is. If you want to accept it, basically, it's $2,000 because I have worked on it for a while, but this is ugly. Access to, right? Anyways, my customer looked at it, clicked on it a few times, and went, Eli? I was like, yeah. She had biggest ass smile on her face. You're like, this eliminates a full-time position. I was like, excuse me? So it was like a kids club type thing. And so they had genders and they had age groups and they had all these classes and it was for a day. And so basically she had more or less a full-time employee that would be there to create this schedule to make sure everybody went to all the different classes that were available. And so this janky ass piece of shit thing that I had created that I felt bad asking for $2,000 for. She literally said that eliminated a $30,000 a year employee. Real world, real world. Remember, boys and girls, we ain't necessarily the good people. Generally, we're not the good people. Remember, what is efficient? What is efficiency? Efficiency is either making systems so resource light that you don't have to hire employees, or improving system utilization to the point that you can get rid of employees. That's what efficiency is about. Technology professionals are about increasing efficiency, which means we're about eliminating jobs. So anyways, something to think about. Second, and what makes the agentic future so compelling for Amazon is that these agents are going to change the scope and speed at which we can innovate for customers. Agents will allow us to start almost everything from a more advanced starting point. We'll be able to focus less on rote work and more on thinking strategically about how to improve customer experiences and invent new ones. This is another thing I want you to be thinking about with technology and the concept of understanding your vertical. I bring up this whole idea where so many Asheville technology professionals I run into have no idea what the profit centers of the businesses that they work for are. They have no idea what their competitors are. They have no idea what their competitive advantage is, right? They do React. Eli, I do JavaScript, right? One of the curious things is a conversation I had over a decade ago, probably 2014, 2015 timeframe. It was interesting. I had a buddy of mine who was a CIO, CTO of an accounting company. And so accounting companies had really gotten in to be managed service providers. And so basically you had these accounting companies. They already had long-term relationships with lots and lots and lots of businesses. It was already a professional services relationship they had. They generally had, not necessarily service contracts, but anyways, monthly billings or whatever that they would provide. And so when they were looking at what else they could offer their customers, they realized technology services actually fit the bill, right? So if you're already getting your accounting, your payroll services from us, why don't you get our computer support services? Anyways, made a lot of sense. And so a lot of accounting companies started adding managed service providing stuff into the company. One of the curious things is as they did that, they started, doing more offerings for their customers with things like business intelligence and that type of deal. And I was talking to the CTO, and he was saying that what they had found for these business intelligence roles is that it was easier to teach an MBA SQL than it was to teach a geek financial stuff. Right? So basically, if you have the MBA already understands accounting, already understands finance, understands rules and regulations and taxes, understands the mindset, the whole 9 yards. You take that business professional, you sit them down for a day of learning SQL, and they can start doing a lot of impressive stuff with business intelligence really, really, really quick. On the flip side, if you have this geek that already really knows SQL, they have SQL down, but then you try to explain to them accounting and finance and law and regulation and everything else, it turns into a bit of a goddamn disaster. And so they literally started hiring directly for business grads and MBAs directly into these business intelligence roles because they actually had the skill set that was more valuable. Easier to teach SQL than it was to teach being an MBA. Why I think this is interesting in the Amazon world and what this is foreshadowing when they start talking about agents will allow us to start almost everything from a more advanced starting point. We'll be able to focus less on rote work and more on thinking strategically about how to improve customer experiences and invent new ones. That is saying the literal skill set that they're going to be looking for going into the future is going to be different than do you understand the JavaScript stack. You may be expert at the JavaScript stack, but if you don't understand the business, is that actually going to be valuable? And that's one of the things I really want you to be thinking about. I get this from so many of the 18-year-olds. They think they want to spend their entire career, elbow deep into ripping apart computers or code or whatever else. And one of the things that I explain is there's nothing wrong with that. You may be fine with that for 5 or 10 years. But at a certain point, it just gets boring. It just gets, okay, you've done this repair before, you've done this code before, you want to do something else. And that's where I talk about moving up in your profession. And so I think this is going to be an important thing for you to be thinking about, is not just understanding your technology stack, but also understanding your industry vertical and asking yourself, when you think about that next certification, Eli, should I get an AI certification? Should I get a C# certification? Should you get an AI certification, or should you go and learn accounting? Should you learn C# or should you understand finance? Should you go and, I don't know, it's not really Active Directory anymore, or get some certification within your actual industry? Agents will be teammates that we can call on at various stages of our work, and that will get wiser and more helpful with more experience. If we build and leverage the right agents, it's going to rapidly accelerate our ability to make customers' lives easier and better every day, and it's going to make our jobs even more exciting and fun than they are today. Instead of dealing with the boring ass coding stuff, you get to focus on the things that are actually interesting. How does that feel? How does that feel? And third, we're going to keep pushing to operate like the world's largest startup, customer-obsessed, inventive, fast-moving, lean, scrappy, and full of missionaries trying to build something better for customers and a business that outlasts us all. You'll continue to see Steam and I take action to help us move faster, have more ownership, and invent more easily. AI will be a substantial catalyst here. Fair enough. Today we have over 1,000 generative AI services and applications in progress or built, but at our scale, that's a small fraction of what we will ultimately build. We're going to lean in further in the coming months. We're going to make it much easier to build agents and then build or partner on several new agents across all of our business units and G&A areas. This is an interesting thing to be thinking about, is the number of things like services or agents that are going to be available. One of the issues that I have when you look at cloud services, whether you look at AWS or whether you look at Azure, is one of the curious things is, from a technical standpoint, using those services is relatively easily, right? The problem is that they now have so many services. If you go to Amazon or if you go to Azure, it's like 200 or 300 services as of right now, and they keep getting more and more services. I would argue, I think as a professional, one of the big things that you're going to need to start doing is simply understand what product offerings are even available, right? The idea that you know JavaScript or you know C# and that's what makes you a professional, I think that's going to go more by the wayside, and it's going to be more of, are you a consultant? If the executive comes to you and they have a problem, if AWS has 300 solutions, and Azure has 300 solutions, and DigitalOcean has 50 solutions, and there's 50 other solutions over here, and 50 other solutions over here, and 50 other solutions over here, and 50 other solutions over here. If your CEO comes to you and says that they have a problem, do you know, horseshoes or hand grenades, what that architecture should look like? Oh, you have that particular problem. I've seen that before. Amazon has a great service that does X, Y, or Z. So if you want me to go ahead, I will research that more and get you a proposal within the next couple of days of what that would require. We're like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Amazon has a solution. Azure has a solution. We are already on the Microsoft stack, so I think we should probably go with Azure, but let me verify what the differences between these two services are. I think that's going to be much more of what being a high-level technology professional looks like versus the tippy-tap typing. Because we're just going to get more. 1,000 generative AI services. I mean, billions of agents. That's one of the things, like, it's called long tail economics. The idea with long tail economics is, if you're in the internet world, there's limitless shelf space. So the old day of having a retail store, you could only put so much in a retail store. So you could only sell so many products, so you would only sell the best selling products. right? With long tail economics, the idea is on the internet, there's limitless shelf space. So you can basically sell anything in the world because there'll be a few people out there that actually want to buy the thing. What becomes interesting with long tail economics and technology services is what happens when there's thousands and thousands and thousands of services out there? How does your poor little human brain figure out which is the most appropriate service for whatever problem it is that you're trying to solve for? That might be an idea there. That might be $100 idea there. What if you came up with an AI to support IT professionals figuring out what the hell they should buy? Again, real issue. As we roll out more generative AI and agents, it should change the way our work is done. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today, right? And more people doing other types of jobs. It's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years, we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company. Okay. So they do say here, will reduce our total corporate workforce. So some jobs might be eliminated. But they're talking about some jobs will go away, some jobs will be created. On the whole, when I first started at Amazon in 1997 as an assistant product manager, I worked on learner teams that got a lot done quickly and where I could have substantial impact. We didn't have tools resembling anything like generative AI, but we had broad remits, high ambition, and saw the opportunity to improve and invent so many customer experiences. Fast forward 28 years, and the most transformative technology since the internet is here. Those who embrace this change become conversant in AI, help us build and improve our AI capabilities internally and deliver for customers, will be well positioned to have high impact and help us reinvent the company. And so that is the conversation from Andy Jassy. Doesn't seem quite so dire as Amazon says it will reduce its workforce as AI replaces human employees, though I suppose at the end it does say most likely the workforce will shrink. I want you to be thinking about all of these concepts for where you think it's most appropriate to put resources for your career. One of the things I've talked about for years, people come to me and they say, Eli the computer guy, if I want to become a technology professional, what certification should I get? What degree should I get? And for years, I have said MBA or Juris Doctor. And then people have gotten very sad because that's not the answer you're supposed to give. My arguments with this is that in the technology world, much of the technology stack stuff isn't the most valuable thing anymore. It's understanding business processes. It's understanding the regulatory environment. It's understanding what the hell contracts in terms of service actually say. It's writing contracts in terms of service and that type of deal. And if you understand how the tech stack works, it's much easier to be able to do those things than if you don't. And I really think that's where more of this stuff is going to be going in the future. We're going to see more and more of scientists. If you go out and get a computer science degree, everybody focuses on the computer part of that degree program. They miss the science part. And that's it, right? You can go out and learn coding. You can go to a boot camp to learn coding. You can watch my videos to learn code. If you want to be a coder or a programmer, there's many ways to do that. But computer science, that is understanding math, understanding science, right? The science behind these computer systems. I think what we're going to start seeing more and more of is this divergence of either being really hardcore technology, really hardcore. I don't mean Python. I don't mean the JavaScript stack. I mean like literally understanding the kernel and the drivers and all that kind of stuff and how to write that type of thing. Or we're going to see more on the business process side. How do you use technology to make systems more efficient and that type of deal? And so that's going to require different skill sets. That's not going to be the A+ skill set. That's not necessarily going to be these certifications we've seen before. And so this is kind of one of those times where you have to start really thinking about what is it you want out of your life? Where do you want to go as both a professional and as a human being? Are you more interested in how businesses operate or how the actual computer systems operate? And then focus more on that. And that's going to require more work. The idea of these being able to go through a boot camp and come out and get $150,000 a year job, I think that is going to become ever less viable. But that's not our industry. That's not us as professionals. That's just there was a world where that was valuable. There was a world in the 1990s where you could go and learn VCR repair, and you could make a lot of money repairing VCRs, and you were a technology professional. There was a world where you could go out and get your A plus and be making $50,000 a year in the early 2000s, simply from that A plus. There was a time period where you could go out and you go to a boot camp in the 2010s and come out and make 100 and 150, right? There have been time periods where this different education and these different educational models did work and they made sense. And then things changes. Then things change and things move on. And I would simply argue we're in the phase where things are changing and they're moving on. So that's what I would say. For a lot of you out there, I get a lot of pushback from folks about this whole business thing. ROI. I mean, your only job at a company is ROI. Basically they pay you. ROI is return on investment. They pay you. They should be expecting 4x whatever they pay you in a return on investment. So if you're a line employee, if you're an employee in one of the profit centers, one of the areas that makes the company money, essentially for every dollar they pay you, they should get $4 in return. Right? And now we hear that like, oh, so they can buy a yacht, which yes. But there's more to it than buying a yacht, right? They get $4 for every dollar they pay you, and then one of those dollars, so one of the dollars goes to you, one of the dollars goes to you, and then one of the dollars goes to facilities. So you got facilities and everything that's required to allow you to actually do your job, and then you go and another dollar gets spent on all the other things that the company needs: marketing, PR, all of that kind of stuff, so they can actually sell their product. Out of the dollar that's left, like 50 cents, goes one place, another 25 cents goes another place, and then they get to keep their 10 cents, right? So they're profiting, right? The CEO profits 10 cents essentially for every dollar that you bring in. As with scale, as we talk about with scale, 10 cents times a lot equals yacht. So anyways, I think this is the kind of thing that you really need to be considering more, being a technology professional, is understanding why you are valuable to the business, understanding what the business does, understanding what environment the business functions within, and then become better at understanding how to utilize the technology that is at your disposal to make your company more efficient. That would be my argument. But anyways, I'm just a guy in my basement screaming at a webcam. So what do you think about this with Andy Jassy talking about generative AI? What do you think about him saying some jobs will go and some jobs will come? On the whole, I don't know. He does seem to say that they will lose jobs at the end of the day, but how many is that really going to be? Who knows? What do you think about the idea of billions of agents? Does that give you a small conniption like me? Like, what? Billions of agents. Oh my golly. What do you think of all the services? They're already talking about 1,000 services for Amazon alone, AI services. How do you even keep up with that kind of thing? Anyways, some things to ponder. Leave your thoughts down below. See y'all later.